It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Fully entrenched in fantasy playoff mode. Week 15 back at it alongside Brian Eikenberry, Andy Hall, miraculously still alive in 3 of the 6 leagues I've involved myself in this season. Neither of our shared leagues, it should be noted, where Brian here has had a tremendous amount of success. You are killing it this year, man.
In our shared leagues, I am number 1 seed in both, the champion of my divisions, winners of everything, destroyer of worlds, and crusher of dreams.
And I don't think you have, it's not like you have the same guys in both leagues.
No.
You just had amazing luck all year.
Well, whoa.
Right?
Let's just
amazing luck,
Let's
Brian.
just settle down there, pal. It's 2 words to fantasy football dominance. Bench strength. That's it. That's all it comes down to.
I mean, I felt like I had a pretty good bench going into the season, but when you lose half your lineup
and that's
to injury in the first 3 weeks of the season,
is I 100% avoided major injury except for my number 1 pick in our Yahoo one was Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, that sucks.
And Lamar Miller was also in that draft class, and Alan Hearns was also. So in my commish league, 3 of my first 6 picks did not make it out of the season with me.
Did you take Arian Foster in that league?
Yeah,
that's
what I meant.
else?
Did I say Lamar Miller?
You said Lamar Miller.
No,
I thought
was Arian Foster.
I was going to say, I thought you meant Arian Foster.
It was because Gronk was my first pick.
Right.
Because Antonio Brown's my keeper. Gronk was my first pick. Then
you loaded up on wide receivers.
Alan Hearns was number 4, and then my 6th pick was what's his face?
Arian
Foster.
Yeah.
So 50% of my picks were.
I mean,
awesome.
here's the deal. I think the most impressive thing about your trump through our 2 shared leagues is that you own neither Le'Veon Bell nor the Atlanta Falcons defense and special teams, both of which either propelled or punked you in Week 14.
Yeah. Yep, that is very, very true.
If you were up against either one of those, you're out. There's no way you could have recovered.
Well, there were some duds. There was some Melvin Gordon, ring a bell.
Injury in the first quarter, out.
1 carry, recovering a fumble, out skis.
Ugh.
Woo.
So bad. If you started Des Bryant last week, awful.
Woo.
I mean, the quarterback play, for the most part, awful.
It was a very low scoring week in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Bad news.
You were lucky to have gotten out of Week 14, that's for sure. And I'm guessing that's why you're still here, because you're still alive. Good for you. No matter how you found us, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher, or online at espndesmoines.com, Brian and I really appreciate your time. Valuable as it is, it'll never go without saying how much that means to us, and a big reason why Brian and myself have made it our mission to never ignore you. Several platforms in which you can get a hold of us. Facebook, feel free to like us there. Twitter, at 515fantasy. I am at Andy Hall Radio. He is at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. Brian and I also can be found on the SleeperBot app, contributing analysis, answering your start-sit questions Sunday mornings, and much more. You reach out, we respond 100% of the time.
And might I add, while we still have your attention, you will want to stay tuned in the spring and late summer for breaking news that may be coming your way.
Wow.
Stay plugged in, my friends.
I'm not even sure what Brian's talking about, but okay. Busy couple of hours, as always, a full slate of matchups to break down as only we do. Grades on all the fantasy relevant players, another round of the pop quiz, playoff edition, answering 3 of fantasy's toughest questions, bargain bin picks from both Brian and myself, and of course the flea flicker, in which we'll talk about whatever comes to mind.
Flicking fleas.
And that's how we'll wrap this show up. But first, We begin, as we always do, with some headlines of fantasy notes. The Rams have fired Jeff Fisher.
Duh. Which goes to say, I hate this. Coaching contracts are fully guaranteed. He just got paid 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And then got booted. Not bad.
I saw a pretty awesome stat, though. It's like Bill Belichick can go 0-16 for the next 6 seasons and still have a better winning percentage than Jeff Fisher.
That's awesome.
John Fossil, this team's the special teams coordinator, he's the interim head coach going forward. Cardinals wide receiver Michael Floyd, how about this? Arrested on a DUI charge, released by the team.
Deuces, bro.
Gone. But honestly, it was bound to happen. It was a contract year for him. It's been an awful season for Michael Floyd. Let's not kid ourselves here.
Yeah,
so
it's been an awful season. They're out of contention. Why even mess with it?
So in comes Mr. J.J. Nelson is my thought on this. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, he's not practicing this week. Head coach Mike McCarthy says they have a plan. What's that
to try
plan?
and get him to win the MVP. That's what it is. Last time he won the MVP, he had that quad injury, and all of a sudden he's the greatest. That's what's trying to happen right now.
No quarterback has been graded higher than Aaron Rodgers since week 6. Wow.
Suck.
Bengals have released kicker Mike Nugent, signed free agent kicker Randy Bullock. So for those of you that just don't even think about your kicker, if you got Mike Nugent,
check your lineup.
Yeah, you might want to double check that. Make sure you don't start a guy who's no longer rostered. Speaking of the Bengals, wide receiver A.J. Green, he's back at practice. There's a chance he'll play this weekend. How much impact he'll have is anybody's guess, Brian.
Do you trust him? And I don't right now. Injuries scare me right now.
Cowboys have activated running back Darren McFadden from injured reserve. He'll serve as the backup to Ezekiel Elliott at this point.
Yeah, I did read an article that, how many carries is it going to take away from Ezekiel? None.
No.
That's how many. None.
Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones did not practice yesterday. He's dealing with that turf toe injury that kept him out of last week's lineup. Wide receiver Mohamed Sanu, he did return to practice, so that's good news for the Falcons. Depending on what happens with Jones this week, at least they've got Sanu out there.
Yep.
Dolphins quarterback Ryan Tannehill has an ACL and MCL sprain, not a complete tear, as was some of the early reports. He's likely out week 15, probably the rest of the season as well. Dolphins do have an outside chance of making the playoffs in the AFC. With Matt Moore, though,
it's done now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Vikings running back Adrian Peterson says he plans to practice this week. He hopes to play Green Bay in week 16. Do you think that'll happen?
I hope they do. I hope he does, and I hope they beat Green Bay. That would make me very happy.
That'll be in Green Bay, and if the Vikings are still in playoff contention, I say count on it. It's definitely going to happen.
So excited.
Eagles have placed running back Wendell Smallwood on IR with the sprained MCL ending his season. Running back Darren Sproles is in the league's concussion protocol. Ryan Matthews show this weekend. Chargers running back Melvin Gordon, we mentioned. He's got that knee sprain. He's also got a hip sprain. He's 3 yards from 1,000 on the season, Brian. Reports suggest he's in a hurry to get back on the field. I wonder why.
Well, yeah, they got that. He deserves to get back on the field. Give him that week of rest right now because I have a bye week in the league I own him in, so let him rest.
Don't you think, though, there's a monetary incentive somehow?
Oh, you bet there is.
3 yards from 1,000, so he's at 997. He wants back on the field like
he is
nobody's
totally
business.
going to fake it because there's probably $250K waiting for him.
There you have it. Chargers may use a platoon of Kenneth Farrow and Ronnie Hillman if he can't play this week. By platoon, though, my guess is Farrow gets probably 85-90% of the touches and Hillman maybe a couple here and there. Colts wide receiver Dante Moncrief day-to-day with a hamstring injury, according to head coach Chuck Pagano. Quarterback Andrew Luck did not practice yesterday, shoulder and elbow soreness there. Niners tight end Vance McDonald, he's been placed on IR with a shoulder injury ending his season. Lions head coach Jim Caldwell confirmed quarterback Matthew Stafford will play through his finger injury. Is that going to affect him much, you think?
So I've been following this one pretty closely. Obviously, he is my quarterback in the league. He has been spotted with a glove that only has a finger on the middle finger, and it's just the tip of his finger. It's not way back. It's just the tip.
So it's like a thong for his middle finger?
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
Okay, that's awesome.
Then. Running back Theo Riddick. Guess what he didn't do on Wednesday?
Practice?
He did not practice.
He hasn't practiced any Wednesday.
Of course, he didn't play last week either. He's got that wrist problem. Bears wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey served his 4-game suspension. He's eligible to play this weekend. Giants running back Shane Vereen made his first catch in 9 weeks, and immediately he's out with a concussion.
That's terrible.
I know. Jets running back Matt Forte has a torn meniscus in his knee. Hello, Bilal Powell.
Bilal Powell just got way more valuable.
And hopefully you held on to him all season long. Texans tight end C.J. Fedorowicz still in the league's concussion protocol. He did not practice on Wednesday. And how about this Deflategate Part 2 electric boogaloo in Pittsburgh? The Giants accused the Steelers of deflating balls last week. Is this going to be a thing again?
Yeah, it seemed like that was a completely bogus report as everybody kind of came out and said, no. But so you get walloped, so you say they deflated footballs. It's cold, and they get kicked around a lot. They're going to lose air at some point.
So is Big Ben going to be the next hit piece for Roger Goodell in the NFL?
No, I don't. If that was the case, he would have been done
then he probably
couple of rapes ago.
Well, he was going to say he should probably apologize to Tom Brady then. Stick around. We're going to be breaking down all the matchups beginning with Thursday Night Football next. This is 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Jumping right into the Thursday night matchup, and that would be Los Angeles at Seattle.
Woohoo.
I don't have a whole lot to tell you on the LA side of the ball. Jared Goff, I'm leaving on the bench. Todd Gurley, I give a desperation C to because I think he's going to get enough volume to matter at least a bit here. Seattle's really tough against the run, and especially when they can key in on him not having to worry so much about that passing game. It just doesn't look very good for Gurley again this week. Kenny Britt, I'm going to leave him on the bench. Brian Quick, Tavon Austin, also not worth starts this week. Lance Kendricks, a desperation C grade at that tight end position, and that's really all I have on the Rams side of the ball. Over to the Seahawks, though, and Russell Wilson. This is tough, Brian, because I want to feel good about Russell Wilson. He was a top 3 quarterback last year. But you know what, man? 13 games into the season, he's had 3 good games.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's quarterbacks who have 7 games who have his stats.
I mean, the last time he played the Rams was back in week 2. They held him to 254 yards and 0 touchdowns. You could argue that Wilson was, less than 100% back then. He's more healthy now. He's actually running the ball once in a while. But think back historically. These Rams always play Seattle really tough.
It's a division game.
They beat them. They can beat them. But, I mean, I don't see that happen. I'm not going to go that far. But I am going to say that, Russell Wilson for me this week, I'm going to give him a C+. That's really all he's going to get for me. On to Thomas Rawls in that running game. I like him a lot better. And I think this is, if the Seahawks want some success offensively, it goes through Thomas Rawls this week. So I'll give him a B grade. 5.6 yards per carry, 74 yards on just 13 touches. The follow-up act last week. Here's the deal. LA, okay, I don't know where to go with this because Rawls, he can look so dominating at times, and he's going up against a Rams D that in the last month has been horrible. And we're talking about over 800 total yards, 7 touchdowns allowed to running backs over the past 5 weeks. That's awful. But there's something to be said for keying in on the running game. If they know that Wilson can't beat them through the air, because they did it to him in week 2, they could key in on Rawls and that running game. I'm going to give Thomas Rawls a B grade this week. And I'm not feeling great about it. But I think Seattle, if they're gonna move the ball, that's how they're gonna do it. Doug Baldwin. I'm giving Doug Baldwin a B grade. I like to be fair to Doug Baldwin because more often than not, he runs his routes from the slot. And more often than not, those slot corners are the beatable ones on most teams. So Baldwin gets a B this week. Lockett and Curse, I'm giving both C grades. Not really in the flex consideration for me. They're more desperation dart throws. And at this point of the playoffs, you can probably find better on your waiver wire. Tight end Jimmy Graham, though, I'm giving him an A grade. This guy has been money in home games this season, Brian. Did you know Jimmy Graham has averaged about 80 yards and scored a touchdown in every single home game this year, except for the season opener.
That's interesting.
So here we are, another home game, and I'm giving Jimmy Graham an A. And that's that matchup.
That's cute. All right, well, on to the Saturday game, folks. That's right, there is a Saturday game, so don't be caught snoozing on your phone. Check your lineup, Saturday game. Dolphins at the Jets. Matt Moore's going to get a C. Not my replacement of choice, even if you are using Tannehill. No stats on the year, so don't bother. Jets, they're the Jets. They're not great. Matt Moore's still going to get a C. They're 22nd against the pass defense. Running back Jay Ajayi, he's going to get an A by volume play alone and the fact that the Jets, over the last 4, we were talking about the Jets. They used to give up 78 yards a game. Over the last 4 games, they're giving up about 130 on the ground. So much like the Rams, they've pretty much just given up and don't care anymore. Statistically, the Jets have given up playing any defense, and Ajayi will get at least 60 and a touchdown this week. Wide receiver Jarvis Landry is going to get a B, almost 1,000 receiving yards, so he's your consistent play. TDs are a concern, so don't expect many downfield shots. Stills is C+. Devontae Parker, B-, same thing here. New QB, can't quite trust any of the receivers outside of Landry in this matchup. And on the Jets side of the ball, Bryce Petty, he's going to be left on the bench. The Dolphins are the 10th best pass defense, and Petty is horrible either way, so no calculator needed.
Weren't you just advocating to start him last week?
Sure was, and if you couldn't do it against the who did they even play last week? I forget.
I don't know. It was awful.
It was one of those, if he can't do it this week, he's never going to do it. He never did it. You heard about Forte. He's likely out, so enter Bilal Powell. Tap, tap, tap on your computer. Put him in your lineup if he's out there. When Forte went out last week, Bilal Powell had 145 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, monster.
You need no more conversation aside from that. Done.
I've mentioned this before, Brian, I love when we know more than NFL coaches. Todd Bowles apparently didn't know that Bilal Powell way better than Matt Forte all year.
Yeah. Sorry.
And they should have been giving him the ball.
Absolutely.
And they didn't.
Brandon Marshall, bench. Enunwa, bench. Anybody catching passes on the Jets is a bench play.
Absolutely. The first of the Sunday matchups for me, Green Bay at Chicago. For the Packers, quarterback Aaron Rodgers, he's an A grade. Huh?
Packers.
Oh, I thought you were making fun of Rodgers. That would have been funnier.
No, I was trying to.
With the exception of last November's head-to-head, Rodgers has put up massive stats against these Bears going back to 2013. It was only 8 weeks ago that he shredded them for 326 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Green Bay has made no mistake about how they intend to try and beat opponents the rest of the season, and much of the game plan goes through Rodgers' right arm. Ty Montgomery, the only running back of note here, and I give him a C grade. Chicago hasn't allowed a 100-yard rusher since Ezekiel Elliott back in Week 3. Montgomery totaled 60 yards on the ground in Week 7, in addition to his 10 catches for 66 yards through the air. I think he's capable of much less now, considering Christine Michael takes a chunk of those carries, and there's simply no room for him in the passing game with Nelson, Adams, and Cobb all healthy. Speaking of that wide receiver core, Jordy Nelson gets an A-. His Week 7 stinker against these Bears is clearly the outlier when considering his body of work this season. 7 touchdown grabs in the last 7 weeks. Nelson is averaging over 10.5 targets, over 84.5 yards per game over that span. Devontae Adams, a B. Back in October, he hauled in 13 receptions for 132 yards and 2 scores against these Bears. Since then, every other game has been productive for Adams, either surpassing 100 yards and or scoring at least once. The alternate games have been extremely quiet. Last week, he went 4 for 104 and a touchdown. Could this week be one of the dreaded alternate games? That is my concern. Randall Cobb, a C grade. Usage been very low since Week 7 when he torched the Bears for 11 receptions on 15 targets, 95 yards and a touchdown. I don't have a lot of hope for him, though, considering how little he's being targeted in comparison to Nelson and Adams over the past month plus. Tight end Jared Cook, a C grade. The Bears have been very good against opposing tight ends all season. Cook is a dart throw at best, despite the potential volume of targets he may see here. On to the Bears. Running back Jordan Howard, first guy I'm going to talk about, a B grade due to sheer volume and the fact that the Packers defense has allowed over 5 yards per carry to Seattle's backs, 4.6 yards per carry to Texans backs, 4.5 to Eagles backs, and 5 yards per carry to Redskins backs over the past month. Howard has proven himself to be a capable bell cow, not to mention durable and a dual threat to run and catch passes. I kind of like him this week. Alshon Jeffrey, I'm not as much. Having served his 4-game suspension, he's expected to return to the field this week. Amazing, though, how different this Bears offense is compared to the offense Jeffrey played with just 1 month ago. On name recognition, he gets a starting grade, but I'm not feeling great about it despite an exploitable opponent this week. Cameron Meredith, a C+. The Packers allow over 270 receiving yards per game to opposing pass catchers. They've given up a total of 25 passing touchdowns this season. Chances are somebody on the Bears roster will catch a touchdown pass. Meredith, I think, is a decent bet. Should be looked at as a low-end flex option with potential this week.
All right, on to the Browns at the Buffalo Bills. RG3 is going to be on the bench. No explanation needed. The Bills have the 7th best pass defense, and RG3 is just that. They got shut down by the Bengals, so expect even more nastiness coming their way, especially if Terrell Pryor keeps running his mouth. Someone I do like, though, is Isaiah Crowell. The Bills do give up about 125 on the ground, so the offense may steer to short passes in the run game quickly. The Crow had 117 last week with RG3 under center. His second best performance of the year, so no reason to think he doesn't repeat. Same as Duke. The other RBs will have a better performance than any of the wide receivers this week. And Corey Coleman, Terrell Pryor, Andrew Hawkins, Gary Barnidge, everybody is on your bench because, wow.
Wow, you don't think Corey Coleman's going to see a ton of targets?
Nobody. Wow. That game was disgusting. And you get shut down by the Bengals, who are terrible?
Well, and that's one reason why I think Terrell Pryor is sort of out of the conversation at this point, and that's unfortunate because it's not like RG3 is going to take downfield shots much.
No.
And it's not like he's going to be able to connect anyway, although I did see RG3 throwing like 70 yards or something in the air last week. That was crazy.
Well, the Bills are a little bit different than the Bengals.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but man, I can't help but feel like somebody is going to catch some passes, and for me, it's probably Corey Coleman.
No, I literally, I'll be surprised if RG3 has more than 150 yards passing.
All right.
So on the other side, on the Bills side of the ball, here's the thing. Rex Ryan, he's getting fired. He's going to get canned.
You really think so?
Yeah. And he's saying he doesn't know whether E.J. Manuel is going to get the start over Tyrod Taylor. Are you kidding me?
Taylor's going to start.
Yeah, Taylor's going to start. But why are you even running your mouth at this point? He's
Stupid.
Blamed everybody but himself,
of course,
for this team.
I think that's his MO, though.
That is his MO. So in lieu of that, Tyrod Taylor's getting an A. It's going to be the dog pound bloodbath in Buffalo. Tyrod Taylor leading the charge. He was connecting with Watkins last week. If you've seen the highlight, he had 220 through the air and 2 touchdowns. And Cleveland has allowed 22 touchdowns in the air, which is the league worst. No reason.
Pick your poison.
Yeah. So no reason to think Tyrod doesn't do it again. Running back LaShawn McCoy is going to get an A by virtue of the Browns being the 31st run defense. You expect Shady to get over 100 yards this week as well. Sammy Watkins is going to get a B. He had 54 and a touchdown last week. Surprised me and possibly you too. I wasn't expecting anything from him, but now we see Tyrod is actually starting to play some football. Robert Woods came back from the knee injury, didn't look 100%, so he's on the bench. Goodwin bench. Charles Clay, I can't even trust him. He only has 1 touchdown on the year.
There's been some volume there in recent weeks. I mean, I've actually picked him up in one league.
But is he going to win you money?
You know, he could surprise you. It's Cleveland. I mean, look at every single tight end they've faced over the past 6-7 weeks. In fact, probably all season long. I think most tight ends have scored a touchdown against them.
Okay, well, Andy's calling Charles Clay. So if you had somebody,
I have a gift. What can I say? I have a gift. I can pick him out, and I think Charles Clay is a great one to pick this
They're
week.
usually out of my nose.
Ooh, that's disturbing.
Feed it to the dog.
Stick around, friends. More matchups if you're not too grossed out. Coming your way next. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, Playoff Edition on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. You also can get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. We really appreciate you guys coming aboard for a Week 15 edition of this show. Brian, how the hell is it Week 15 already?
Man, this sucks.
Unbelievable.
It's great. I love the football season. It's almost over. But, yeah, here we are.
Next matchup, Philadelphia at Baltimore. First, the Eagles. Quarterback Carson Wentz, leaving him on the bench. You're better off leaving him on the sidelines this week in favor of one of several veterans that may not appear to have much upside but are playing in exploitable matchups this week. Stay tuned for the bargain bin. A couple of those from both Brian and myself. Running back Ryan Matthews, a C grade. Good news, Matthews appears to be the only Eagles back healthy enough to contribute any significant degree this weekend. Bad news, he's running up against the league's toughest front seven in their house. Steer clear is my advice. Wide receiver Jordan Matthews, a B-. He isn't 100% healthy, but is 100% the only Philly wide receiver I'd consider in my starting lineup this week. Probably sees a lot of Jimmy Smith, who has been one of the league's best cover corners all year long. Tight end Zach Ertz, a B grade. Baltimore ranks 5th against opposing tight ends, allowing an average of just over 5 fantasy points per week to the position. But Ertz will see volume in this matchup regardless and is worth starting as a low-end tight end one this week. Over to the Ravens. Short and sweet, man. Quarterback Joe Flacco, a C+. The defense Flacco will see this weekend, very similar to the defense Wentz will be up against. Philadelphia and Baltimore, built similarly, have eerily similar statistics against their defenses. Flacco gets a starting grade because he's a veteran, but I wouldn't start him personally. Running back Terrence West, a B-. The Eagles are a top half run defense, allowing over 101 rushing yards per game, a total of 9 scores on the ground this season. West, despite losing field time to the rookie Kenneth Dixon, remains the clubhouse favorite to lead the backfield in touches here. Wide receiver Steve Smith, a B-. Probably gets matched up with Leotis McKelvin, the former Buffalo Bills standout corner. He's done a pretty good job all season long against opposing number ones like Smith, but as always, one can never truly write Smith off, no matter what he did, even just a few days ago. Mike Wallace, a C+, assuming Flacco gets enough time in the pocket, and he might not, considering how much the Eagles like to blitz. But if he does, I give Wallace a chance to produce, maybe grab a long one with a potential to score. The decision to plug him in doesn't come without serious risk, however, so proceed with caution. Tight end Dennis Pitta, a C grade, had a decent day against these Eagles the last time they met back in September of 2012. I don't see him coming anywhere close to that level of success against a defense that has been an incredibly difficult matchup for tight ends all season long.
Did you think the Ravens were going to come back and win that game against the Patriots? I did.
It was crazy that it happened so quickly.
I thought they were going to win.
It looked like a dominant Patriots performance there for 3.5 quarters. And then all of a sudden, Baltimore just woke up.
Kenneth Dixon went, watch this.
It was crazy.
All right, on to the Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs. Quarterback Marcus Mariota is going to get a B-. Kansas City has the bend but don't break mentality. Mariota is going to get you yards. Likely not going to surrender the touchdown. He may have one this week. And he will get probably a fumble and at least an interception, guaranteed. Been saying it all year long about the Chiefs' defense.
Oh, they're completely one of the most opportunistic units in the league, for sure.
Another reason I'm winning. Running back DeMarco Murray's going to get a B. Murray consistently shows up. However, I'm growing concerned as of late because Derrick Henry's emergence around the 15-yard line. Last week, he had 12 touches and a touchdown. That was called back. So, man, you got to start looking about that and wondering if DeMarco Murray's starting to wear out towards the end of the season here. Something's got to be up.
I think this is what the coaching staff in Tennessee wanted for much of the season. They just haven't really gotten it until just now. But I think more of a timeshare there, DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry.
If you're a Murray owner, you banked on him all year, and you get to the final stretch, and Derrick Henry has 12 carries, and then he had a touchdown, but it was called back.
He had one the week before, so I mean,
yuck.
It's in week 12 because they were on a bye week 13. But my point is Henry's trending up.
Yeah, he is.
Murray's trending down. He's not scoring like he was. So
scary situation. So Tajay Sharp, Rashard Matthews, they're going to get C's. It's a risky play. Kansas City is playing for a lot. They're trying to get some of those first round buys, so they're going to be bringing the heat, especially at home. I wouldn't start any wide receiver for the Titans roster except for Delaney Walker. Chiefs give up the 8th most yards to opposing tight ends, so that's something of value. And let's just forget about the stinker from last week where Walker only had 2 of 7 targets. On the Chiefs side of the ball, Alex Smith got a B. Smith had his second highest yardage output last week against the Raiders, which shouldn't have been too big of a surprise since it was the Raiders' defense. The Titans have the second worst pass defense in the league, so you might get another good performance here out of Smith. Running back Spencer Ware's going to get a B-. Ware's going to have a tough matchup because of the run defense, but he will get some action. If the Chiefs are passing well, expect them to stay there, especially at home. Jeremy Maclin's going to get a C. The dude was a ghost last week, only had 1 target. He's just terrible. He has not been the same since coming back from that groin injury. He had over 40 snaps, but it's just not coming back. It's tough to say that he won't be a good option, but I can't bet the farm on him. Tyreek Hill is going to get a B+. Caught all 6 of his targets last week and a touchdown, so he's emerging as a viable starting option, which I think he is a full go in this matchup.
He had a return touchdown last week,
Yeah,
too.
he did.
God,
Double money.
He is absolutely, he's a weapon. I love that guy.
Awesome. And then you go over to Travis Kelce. Hey, averaging over 100 yards per game in his last 4. Kelce is a machine. Expect the same again this week. He may be the start of the Chiefs roster this week.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think he's a top 3 tight end play this week for sure. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, a big AFC North tilt here. We'll start with the Steelers. Quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, Brian. I don't see great things from Big Ben, whose issues on the road have become something of legend, but more than that, the Bengals secondary has also dramatically improved since week 6, allowing only about 240 passing yards per game, 1 passing touchdown on average. Ben averaged 255.5 passing yards per game in 2 games in Cincy last season, threw for only 1 touchdown in those 2 games. I'm giving him a B- here. It probably should be an even lower grade than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
as long as Antonio Brown's an A, I'm fine.
Yeah, but
I'm counting on him.
it's not going to be an A, but I will say that Le'Veon Bell is an easy A. No-brainer start against a bottom 3rd run defense. The last time he faced the Bengals at their place, Brian, 26 carries, 185 yards, 2 scores on the ground.
That's gross.
6 receptions for 50 yards and a score via the air the same game.
How does he not have 3,000 total yards at this point?
Well,
I mean, he should have more yards than he has. I guarantee he has more yards than 3 quarterbacks that are starting right now.
Remember this. He was out for the first 4 games of the season, and then a very slow start. Not in yardage. He did great there. He wasn't hitting the end zone the first few weeks of the season. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
So it wasn't so long ago.
Crazy.
Now, Antonio Brown is not an A, as I alluded to, but I did give him a B+. He hasn't had much of an issue reaching 100 yards plus receiving in road games at Cincy, but he hasn't found the end zone, curiously, in 6 previous games in Cincinnati. No touchdowns.
As long as he has 295 yards, I'm okay with it.
You get that yardage bonus there, don't you? Tight end Ladarius Green, a B grade. One spot I think the Steelers' passing game can exploit the Bengals is at the tight end position, where Ladarius Green is a complete mismatch for any of Cincy's secondary guys. They allow the 3rd most production to the position in the league, over 10 fantasy points per game, in fact. Over to the Bengals, quarterback Andy Dalton, a B grade. Lots of question marks here. Does A.J. Green play? How effective can he be? And will there be winter weather to contend with? Because I'm hearing that all over the place.
It's going to be terrible.
I'm hearing Green Bay, Chicago is going to be awful. I'm hearing this one, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
This is why you take indoor kickers.
Yeah, well, not just that. I think Matt Ryan might be the only good quarterback play of the week because of that.
Gross.
Dalton's track record against Pittsburgh is just okay. Despite throwing for 366 yards back in week 2, he's averaged less than 250 yards passing per game historically. He has never thrown for more than 2 touchdowns in any one game against the Steelers. Too many question marks for him to be a no-brainer start. Smart money is to temper your expectations and be pleasantly surprised if he outperforms your expectations, and they should be about a B grade. Another B grade, Jeremy Hill, a volume play, as the Steelers are very tough against the run in terms of yardage allowed, but they have given up 11 touchdowns to opposing runners on the season, so there's a decent amount of hope involved in starting Hill this week. A.J. Green. Oh,
yikes.
God.
I don't want to.
When I realized I had this matchup,
You wanted to change it to me, but you realized you already sent the email?
For many of you, this is the fantasy semis, and risk aversion. I always preach risk aversion.
Yeah,
aversion
100%.
is the name of the game when you're trying to win a fantasy championship. And a guy like A.J. Green, listen, like Dalton, it's incredibly difficult to handicap his chances considering we don't really know where he's at in terms of his health. Can he be productive? Absolutely. He's A.J. freaking Green. It's a risk you're going to have to live with if you plug him in this week, but it could pay off huge and propel you into the championship round. It's decisions like these, Brian, that make or break your hopes for a fantasy title.
Decoys are a thing nowadays. Just saying.
Tyler Boyd, a C+. He's in flex consideration because he did pretty well last time these two teams met. Brandon LaFell, I'm leaving on the bench. Tyler Eifert, a B+. Pittsburgh, middle of the road against the tight end position. They've allowed just over 800 total yards and 4 scores to the position. More matchups still to come. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Tell your friends about us. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. More matchups.
More matchups. The Detroit Lions at the New York Giants. Quarterback Matt Stafford, C+.
Uh-oh.
That is the lowest grade I've given him, and it hurts me to say it.
Well, Giants are elite.
But the honesty and integrity of this show will not be swayed by my personal choices in NFL football teams.
That's pretty obvious with me and the Vikings.
The finger injury gives me a little reservation as a co-host and an owner. It is his middle finger. It's the very top, so it won't be a massive impact, but still going to affect him, especially in the brisk New York chilly weather. That, I think, is the biggest factor right there.
You know, not even the craziest Giants fan wears a thong in the cold.
Hey, it's going to happen, but the cold is, I think, what's going to be the issue, not the actual finger itself.
Fair enough.
I personally picked up Tyrod Taylor to start over Matt Stafford this week, so I'm just making that call right now in the air. I'm starting Tyrod over Matt Stafford this week. Running back Theo Riddick, he's going to get a B-. If he gets back from his wrist injury, he may be a viable option in the short passing game because likely Stafford won't be able to throw deep and fast. The Giants have given up over 100 on the ground in the last 2 games, but still average less than 100 per game on the whole season. Wide receiver Golden Tate is going to get a B+. Short, quick passes benefit Tate's playing style more than anyone else. If you have him starting, Marvin Jones is going to get a C. More of the downfield threat, and the finger is an issue of concern. He is a bench rider for me. Stafford won't be taking too many downfield shots, and if he did, it's probably going to get picked off. Wide receiver Anquan Bolden, B-. Another guy who can make that touchdown happen. He gets them 8-yard slants, going to move the chains. It's how they're going to use the short passing option this week to try and beat the Giants. So I think that helps his position and a manageable option in your flex spot if you are in the money and a receiver short. Ebron, go ahead and leave on the bench. He has a good game and then goes missing. It's hard to tell how they're going to use him. Couple that with the fact that Stafford will scramble for a first down. Makes Ebron's value slip a little bit more for me. Onto the Giants side of the ball, quarterback Eli Manning is going to get a B. The Lions are a middle-of-the-road pass defense that stopped the Saints at home and could do the same if they're able to pressure Eli quickly. Hope they were watching the Cowboys game.
Being an Eli owner has been so frustrating this year.
Oh, he was going to be one of our big picks this year.
So frustrating.
Yeah. Stinks. So Eli's averaging 240 through the air. Lions give up 250, so he should perform as expected. Rashad Jennings is going to get a B-. The Lions have the 11th best run defense that gains their best linebacker in DeAndre Levy at full strength this week. He should have an immediate impact. Not to mention the Giants aren't great runners, averaging about the same as the Lions, just over 70 yards per game, which is disgusting. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. is going to get a B+. He will be exclusively shadowed by Darius Slay. The Giants are a one-trick pony on offense, and over his last 6 games, he averages over 10 targets per game. He is averaging 90 and a touchdown in his last 3, so I expect the same again this week. Sterling Shepard, Victor Cruz, go ahead and leave them on the bench. Lions give up the 7th fewest points to wide receivers this season, and if you just watched last Sunday's game, it's going to be the same thing again. I think this is going to be a 7-10 football game.
Interesting call.
That's it. You're not getting Will Tye out of me either.
Indianapolis at Minnesota. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. Start with the Colts. Andrew Luck, I'm giving a B- to the Vikings. They're elite against the pass. Think Denver. They're like that. There aren't many quarterbacks that I'd actually feel good about against them, particularly in Minnesota where they're even better. Luck is an elite passer, but against Denver back in week 2, he threw for under 200 yards, only 1 touchdown, 1 INT. It isn't crazy to expect similar results this week. Frank Gore, a B-. Minnesota gives up a decent amount of yardage to opposing backs, but only 6 have scored on them all season long. Gore may see a decent amount of volume, considering the Colts will be hesitant to try to beat them via the air, and that gives me reason to believe he may be flex-worthy, especially with injuries to key members of the Vikings defense. And one of those key injuries benefits T.Y. Hilton, who I'm giving a B+ to. He should run the majority of his routes from the slot, which means he'll likely see a lot of Captain Munnerlyn. Now, Munnerlyn's been pretty good this season, but he's missing Harrison Smith on the back end, who's an elite free safety. He's out this week, so that's going to hurt. Captain Mutterland, good. Not dominant as Xavier Rhodes and Terrence Newman have been this season. They'll get Dante Moncrief and Philip Dorsett. Moncrief I'm giving a C grade to. I love this guy's speed and athleticism, but I have very little hope for him in this matchup with Xavier Rhodes. Dwayne Allen I'm leaving on the bench. Only 2 tight ends have scored on the Vikings all season long. Don't count on anything big from Allen or Jack Doyle for that matter. Doyle I'm leaving on the bench. I'm also leaving the aforementioned Philip Dorsett on the bench. He's been a disappointment. Over to the Vikings. Quarterback Sam Bradford. All right, I just talked about how I'm more than fair about the Vikings. I'm giving Bradford a B grade this week. Here's your oddball call of the week. Sam Bradford will outproduce Andrew Luck in this game.
So I was considering picking up Sam Bradford over Tyrod Taylor to start.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
It's crazy.
Colts give up on average 262 passing yards per game and have allowed 23 passing touchdowns to only 7 INTs. It's a plus matchup where Luck's isn't, so I say Bradford actually does better than Luck this week. Jerick McKinnon, a C+. Indy has given up the 9th most rushing yards to opposing backs this season, but only 9 rushing scores. McKinnon's usage has been perplexing to say the least, but it could simply be a byproduct of an offensive line that is among the league's worst. Low-end flex option with a little upside if he contributes any in the passing game. Matt Asiata, a C+. Goal line plunge is what you're banking on, as always. Are you willing to risk it in the semis? Wide receiver Stephon Diggs, a B+. Target share and yardage have been on the decline since he caught 13 of 15 targets for 164 yards against the Redskins in Week 10. Granted, much of this has to do with bracket coverage the past few weeks, which has benefited Adam Thielen and Kyle Rudolph. I think Diggs gets back on track this week against an aging Vontae Davis. Adam Thielen's been great. He gets a B grade from me this week. Speaking of him, only 42 yards shy of giving the Vikings the first duo of wide receivers with over 800 receiving yards in the same year since Moss and Carter did it back in 2001.
Culpepper.
Although Diggs and Thielen just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No, it does not.
He's failed to top 42 yards in only 4 games all season, and in one of those, he scored a touchdown. He's a very solid start this week in your flex position for being a relative no-name. Kyle Rudolph, a B grade. Indy gives up on average over 5.5 receptions for over 67 yards per game to opposing tight ends on the season. They've also allowed 4 tight end scores this year. I kind of like Rudolph.
All right, so this is going to be the fastest matchup in 515 history. Jacksonville at Houston.
Oh, so gross.
Yucky. Quarterback Blake Bortles, bench. Wasn't a fan before. Texans' pass defense is pretty good. 21 touchdowns, 15 interceptions on the year. Chris Ivory, bench. TJ Yeldon, bench. 200 yards last 6 games. Allen Robinson, bench. 13 yards last week and not more than 100 in the last 3 weeks combined.
Gets A.J. Bouye in coverage this week.
Yeah. Allen Hurns, bench. 12 yards last week, not more than 100 in the last 6 weeks combined. Marquise Lee, bench. Had 100 yards last week, but has 175 in the last 3. Julius Thomas
is on IR.
That's it. That's all I got for the Jags. On to the Houston side of the ball, Brock Osweiler, bench. He was great. He wasn't great, and the Jags have a top 5 pass defense, and the receivers aren't much help either. Lamar Miller, B. Something is fishy here, but I think they're resting him for the playoffs considering the Texans are in first place. You're seeing a little bit more of Grimes and Blue on the field now, more and more, but Lamar Miller's still the guy. So he will get a B since he is a starting running back.
In the same league that I'm an Eli Manning owner and totally frustrated by that, I have been totally frustrated as a Lamar Miller owner as well in the same league.
Jonathan Grimes is out on the field at like the 50-yard line, you're like, what?
Every time I see Alfred Blue out there, I think of you, Brian, and I get so pissed off.
Man, he hooked me up last year pretty good. DeAndre Hopkins, C. Just on name recognition, in case he does make a big play, even though he does have 1 touchdown in his last 8 games. Just a sad, sad situation. Will Fuller, bench. No explanation needed. CJ Fedorowicz is going to get a B-. He hasn't had over 50 yards in 4 weeks, and that is concerning as the Jags give up the 9th fewest points to tight ends.
Hopefully he passes the league's concussion protocol before Sunday.
Yep.
Keep an eye on the situation. Real quick, if you're on iTunes,
Yeah.
We would love it if you would rate and review the show.
We got some people out there who hooked us up recently.
One
we appreciate
one
it.
of which I want to mention specifically actually got on and said, I love the show, but I'm only doing this so you guys stop asking for it. Well, here's the thing. I'm not really ever going to stop asking for it because the more rates and reviews we get, the better visibility we'll get on iTunes. There are a lot of options out there for fantasy football. We think we're one of the best, and we want to be rewarded for our hard work too. We're not asking for money from you guys.
That's all we're asking. A couple of thumb taps.
A couple of minutes, of your time. Go online. Go on iTunes
You
right
got
from
it
your
on your
phone.
phone.
Yeah, just go ahead and
tap, tap, tap.
yeah. Or if you're on Stitcher, you can do the same too. But either way, we would appreciate that. Stick around. Everybody's favorite segment, the pop quiz, coming right up. Playoff edition. 3 of fantasy's toughest questions answered by Brian, who has no prior knowledge of what I'm about to ask him. Should be fun. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Hour number 2 of the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa, each and every Thursday. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. We invite you to like us on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. We're on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. If you feel like hitting us up there, asking your questions prior to the games coming up here, we are always good about answering those questions in a timely manner. If you want to hit us up individually, you can do that too. I'm on Twitter at Andy Hall Radio. He is at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. And we're on the SleeperBot app, typically Sunday mornings leading up to those games and the noon kickoffs. And we're answering your start-sit questions for about an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah, all you got to do is click on the podcast section there. You can access it on your computer. You don't have to be on your phone. You can pull it up, sleeperbot.com, I think, or .net, something like that. Pull it up on your computer, hit the podcast section, look for the 515 Fantasy ESPN little tag there. Come hang out and ask us some questions. Football-related questions. I don't get into the personal questions on there. But,
you know what's funny, though? Like, we get, when we do that, typically it's about 1,000 messages over the course of an hour, hour and a half. And every once in a great while, somebody will ask something completely random, which I appreciate. Because, most people just want to know who to start and, who to sit and that sort of thing. But every once in a while, you get, like, a really random question, like, what was your favorite Star Wars movie, And I have to answer back, of course, Empire Strikes Back. Duh. Although I am very excited about Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and we'll talk about that in the Flea Flicker coming up. All right? But now, everybody's favorite segment.
The Pringles quiz.
Something like that. Pop quiz, Fantasy Playoffs edition, Week 15. So we have 3 of Fantasy's toughest questions. Brian has no idea what they are, so we're just going to throw them at him.
They're questions.
They are questions.
Trick questions.
Not trick questions. You'll like these. These are playoff edition.
Ooh, all right then.
Question number 1.
Deal.
In redraft leagues, should teams that did not qualify for the playoffs be able to have access to the waiver wire during the playoffs?
Nope.
We're going to need more than that, Brian. We have 11 minutes to fill.
You did not make the playoffs. You do not count. End of comment. This goes back to the losers bracket. You did not make the big boy table. You are done. In my commish league, every person that gets eliminated, your roster is locked. You cannot add, you cannot drop, you cannot play spoiler, you cannot be a jerk. You are done. Pay your bill. See you next year.
The answer, of course, is no. Only in the case of Dynasty League should everyone have access to adds and drops once the playoffs begin. In redrafts, you don't make the dance. You're locked out, just like Brian said. But I would make the exception in Dynasty Leagues.
Yeah, I guess in Dynasty, that makes sense because those are long-term impacts, and that's like a real football team.
Like, say, if somebody in a Dynasty auction league puts up an auction for Taylor Gabriel, maybe. And maybe I just want to grab Taylor Gabriel because I think his long-term, prospects are pretty decent with that Atlanta Falcons
Absolutely.
team. He's in the playoffs, and he wants to grab Gabriel to help his team out, which his team has no business being in the playoffs. Oh, I'm getting personal here, aren't I? Okay. On to question number 2. In the fantasy playoffs, should the brackets be fixed or floating, Brian?
I am a fixed bracket kind of person. I do not like the reseed option. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not a reseed kind of a person. You're probably going to say, yeah, because that's the fair way of doing it. Look, playoffs are seeded. That's how it's going to be. I don't like to, well, okay, you're the number one. Your reward was the first round bye. That's where the end of your rewards stop.
Floating brackets are the way to go. It's how they do it in real football. Why not in fantasy?
It's not real football.
Oh, come on. If a 6 seed defeats a 3 seed in the first round, has the number 1 seed not earned the right to face the lesser of his adversaries, Brian?
No, you got the first round bye. That was your reward.
Why should a 2 seed who also got a bye have the advantage of facing a lower seeded team?
It's obviously not an advantage if that 6 seed walloped that 3.
I think I just destroyed your argument, though.
No.
Because, I mean, your whole thing was the bye week, and it's like, well, the 2 seed got the bye week too, probably.
Yeah. So your reward was the bye. You're not getting reseeded.
I do see your point in that sometimes a team that, ends up a 6 seed might be the hottest team in the league.
Absolutely.
Maybe they started the season 0-5.
Happens all the time.
Went on a tear, and they just can't be stopped. I get that, but I am a bigger fan of the floating bracket system, and anybody who's in a fixed bracket system should, graduate to the 21st century with
Or
us.
maybe you should make the playoffs, and then you can complain about it.
Yeah, there's that, I guess, which I'm not in any of those with our leagues. I keep pointing that out because I'm being fair.
Fair and balanced.
Yeah, next year when I'm in the playoffs and you're not, we'll see who's fair.
I even drafted from what did I was 7th?
Right in the middle.
I did, man. I put it together this year. Bam.
Bet you got that question wrong, so.
Well,
we're on to number 3. Let's go through some of fantasy's biggest busts of the year.
oh, geez. How many? We don't have enough time.
5. I'll give you the name, and then you give me one reason why they're underperforming. We'll call this little exercise the finger. Who gets the finger?
Freddie.
Okay, ready? Our first candidate, the Rams' Todd Gurley. Who gets the finger, Brian?
I don't get it.
You
why?
give me
Why
one,
do they,
give me one
because
good
the
reason.
Because the quarterback situation was so terrible, they were stacking 9 people in the box against the Rams. I don't care who you are. Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Jim Brown. With 9 people in the box, you were going nowhere.
I would agree 100% on that assessment, Brian. Although I will say that, that offensive line didn't do him
Are
any
you keeping him?
favors this year.
If you had him as your keeper last year, are you keeping him again this year?
No, chances are you've got a better option.
It's not going to miraculously get better.
No. All right. The Texans, DeAndre Hopkins. Who gets the finger, Brian?
So I'm going to say both on this one. I think it's the quarterback play, but I also think that, hey, he wasn't as good as advertised. Stud wide receivers find a way to get the ball. Hopkins has had a fair share of targets. I can look him up right now, but he gets targets. He's also just not getting the receptions. Now, granted, targets doesn't mean the ball was thrown right to him, so I would go 75% quarterback, 25% receiver on that one.
Does Lamar Miller have any share in that blame? I think
No.
Lamar Miller is a part of it.
Maybe 10%.
Okay. All right.
Maybe 10%.
I like everything you said, except you didn't mention Lamar Miller.
Because it's not.
He took a share away. I mean, look at.
Did Calvin Johnson ever have a problem with a running back taking away targets?
I don't think they ever had a Lamar Miller.
But you know what I'm trying to say,
back.
though? You know what I'm trying to say? Did Michael Irvin ever have lower targets or less receptions
Because of Emmitt Smith?
No.
If anything, it probably helped him.
Yeah. So, no.
Okay.
It should have
It was
helped
the quarterback,
Hopkins.
though, more than anybody.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
That was a $70 million whoops.
The next one on the list here is the Jags' Allen Robinson. Who gets the finger, Brian?
Blake Bortles.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. He was bringing in quarterback coaches to work on his mechanics and all this junk, and it's like, what? Talk about massive regression.
Yeah, I mean, remember, in addition to the massive season Allen Robinson had last year, Allen Hurns was also a double-digit touchdown guy last year, and he has been non-existent this year. So it is absolutely, positively 100% Blake Bortles. The Jets' Brandon Marshall. Who gets the finger, Brian?
Eric Decker.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm so happy you just said that. I thought you were going to say Fitzpatrick.
no. Eric Decker.
It's totally Eric Decker's fault.
When Decker got hurt,
Yep.
that was it for the team.
I agree completely.
Just completely folded everything.
Oh, Brian, you're really impressing me.
Yeah. This one's fun. I like
had
this one.
Decker in mind when I came up with this one. All right. I mean, it wasn't completely his fault because he got hurt, but it was because of that injury.
He should drink more milk.
There you have it. Our last one, the Cardinals' Carson Palmer. Who gets the finger?
I will have fun with this one,
Please do.
and I will say Coach Bruce Arians.
Wow. Really?
Carson Palmer was never a stud quarterback, and the way he ended last season was the way this entire season has gone.
Yep.
So to not have a backup plan, to not realize that you're aging. I mean, think about how long Carson Palmer has been in the league back with the Bengals way, way back when, and how that whole situation just completely crumbled. And he was out for football for a whole year and a half or something like that. And then he came back and he was hot and then not and then hot and then not and then he just stayed not. I mean, at some point, you have to figure something out. And then old, aging quarterbacks not named Peyton Manning or Tom Brady are not the answers to your problem. The freaking Cardinals should be 10-2 or 10-3, but they are a losing record all because of Carson Palmer, all because Coach Arians.
See, I think you were onto something there when you said Carson Palmer, because for me, who gets the finger? It's Carson Palmer. I mean, really, he's the regression point. I don't think it's the coach's fault. I don't think coaches put him in a bad position.
That's why I said I want to have fun with it.
David Johnson is, he's setting records for his number of touches this season, and for good reason, because Arians has given him the ball, and he should. But yeah, that was a fun little exercise there.
That was neat.
Thought I'd switch it up a little for you. Couple more segments of matchups to break down here in Week 15, and we also have those bargain bin picks on the way as well. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Hard to believe that it's just this week and then Week 16, 17, and then the recap show. So we essentially have 3 episodes remaining, Brian, after this week is over.
I'm excited for the recap show because that means I don't have to do matchups.
Yeah, we can actually, stretch out and sort of go off the top of our head more than go get all statistical and break things down.
Yeah, it's a lot of work putting together matchups and all this stuff, and I probably log between 10 and 14 hours total of putting it into prep for an hour and 30 some minutes.
Yeah, and it's not like we have a lot of time to turn that around. We kind of start the process during Monday Night Football, I think. I think both of us do it that way. Because I want the most recent statistics, and I want to watch Monday Night Football, see how that unfolds, and then we have the show to consider for Thursday, and then we're right back into Thursday Night Football, and now we have Saturday games, so it's getting interesting. Back into the matchups for Week 15 and your fantasy semis. New Orleans at Arizona. First, the Saints. Quarterback Drew Brees, a C grade. Been a rough couple games for Brees.
Oh, gross.
The last time he threw 0 touchdowns in back-to-back games was September of 2009. That was 119 games ago, Brian. A great stat there from the great Paul Charchian. Next on the schedule, Arizona, who barely allow 200 passing yards per game, have given up only 13 passing scores on the season and picked off 12 enemy passes. We all know of Drew's road woes. They're about to continue. Mark Ingram, a C+. The Cardinals are a top 10 unit and against the run as well, allowing only 3.7 yards per carry on the season, though they have given up 14 rushing scores on the year, so there is a glimmer of hope for Ingram. Tim Hightower, though, I'm leaving on the bench. Brandon Cooks, a C+. All these Saints pass catchers are shaky starts. First, there's the fact that this is a terrible matchup for the passing game in general. Second, it's on the road. Third, Brees spreads the ball around. Who has the most exploitable matchup of the Saints pass catchers? I don't think it's Cooks.
I don't know.
It also isn't Michael Thomas, who probably sees Patrick Peterson this week, so he gets a C grade. Willie Snead also a C. There's a chance he's the guy with the biggest potential this week. The one time he faced these Cardinals, he caught a lone long ball, one catch for 63 yards. That's pretty gross. Kobe Fleener, I'm leaving on the bench. Scored on Arizona back in 2013 as a member of the Colts. That's really all I've got. you're better off looking elsewhere. The Cardinals are the worst nightmare for opposing tight ends. They rank number 1 against the position. Now on to the Cardinals. Carson Palmer, a B+, would be a higher grade if it weren't for David Johnson's complete and utter dominance on a game-by-game basis. Of course, Palmer has been getting his too on occasion when Johnson grabs a touchdown via the air. The Saints, they're bad against the pass. David Johnson, I'm not even going to insult anybody's intelligence. He's an A grade. You're starting him. Larry Fitzgerald, a B+. Historically, the Saints have played him tough. In 6 previous head-to-head matchups against New Orleans, Fitz has only scored once back in 2007, though he has turned in decent yardage totals in the majority of those games. J.J. Nelson, a B grade. With Michael Floyd indisposed, John Brown out, Nelson should benefit greatly. We'll discuss him a little bit more later on in the show. Jermaine Gresham, a B-, a great sleeper option whose target share and yardage totals have kind of sneakily been on the rise over the past month. Jermaine Gresham.
All right, let's do the 49ers at the Atlanta Falcons. The Niners quarterback's going to get a B-. Not sure what to make here. He had a great few games and 2 stinkers that may have eliminated you from playoff contention. Either way, I can't risk it. Do you want to risk a 2-pointer? He's likely going to have some points on the turf running about, but with Vance McDonald out, you have to wonder who's going to catch the ball at this point. Running back Carlos Hyde's going to get a B. Falcons give up 100 on the ground, and Hyde is a decent runner who has been pretty good lately. If you were in a bind and started him last week, you were pretty happy, averaging over 100 yards through his last 4 games, but no touchdowns. Those typically go to the quarterback or used to go to Vance McDonald. Wide receivers, kind of the always same old song and dance here we've done all year. Torrey Smith, Patton, Curley, they're all on the bench. No gambling allowed here this late. None of them have been consistent. None of them have over 700 yards through 13 games, so that should be enough for anyone to say no. The best receiver now just got put on IR. Onto the Falcons side of the ball, quarterback Matt Ryan's going to get an A. Will have a high completion percentage, will minimize turnovers. He will play with his new target machine and even rotate in Sanu, and especially if Julio plays. Devonta Freeman's going to get a B+. Expect him to get a heavy workload as they will be up quick at home, and to minimize the reps on Julio if he goes, they're going to run. Tevin Coleman's going to get a C. Will get mixed into the loop, has the potential to break one away because it's the worst defense in the league. Julio Jones is your question mark. You're going to have to follow that one to a game-time decision. We've talked about that one. Sanu, he's going to get a B. It's the number 2 and number 3, depending on who's starting. Gabriel has outshined Sanu, and that's just the truth. Sanu is no different than a 49ers wide receiver at this point. Taylor Gabriel is going to get a B+. Always a nice start, and I would do so again this week, especially going against the 49ers.
You know, with Desmond Trufant out for the rest of the season for the Falcons, I'm surprised you couldn't find room for at least one Niners pass catcher.
It does. Here's the thing. If you look statistically on the Niners pass catchers, they are all right around within 100 yards of each other, all have very minimal touchdowns. So to say one or the other is going to have a game has just been completely futile this whole year to try and pick. It's not a good situation to have to make a choice to start one. Someone's going to have a touchdown, guarantee it. Someone's going to have 80 yards.
Yeah,
Who?
but I mean, you know,
No
we know it won't be
Curley.
Torrey. Yeah, well, right. It won't be Torrey Smith because he's got the head issue. Curley, though, you know, going up against what's that corner's name? Brian Poole for Atlanta. That's a good matchup for Curley. And let's face it, I mean, Kaepernick, he's going to be playing in a dome on a turf. You know, he's going to run the ball. So, I mean, there's going to be some production there for him, too,
Well, I gave
a little
him a
bit.
grade.
Oh, I thought you left him on the bench.
No, I gave him a grade. Jeez.
Being
I gave
fair.
him a B-.
But, I mean, one of the pass catchers, I'm sure, will get it
Yeah,
done.
I'm not comfortable picking one.
Huh. I would
If you
pick,
had to, pick Curley, I guess.
well, to be, you know, full disclosure, I considered Curley pretty strongly for my bargain bin pick this week.
Woo,
So
stinky.
there you go. Oakland at San Diego. Start on the Raiders side of the ball. Quarterback Derek Carr, a B grade. Back in October, Carr threw an efficient 317 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an INT against the Chargers in the black hole. He's fortunate to have one of the league's better offensive lines protecting him because this time around there's Joey Bosa to consider. The rookie is the only edge rusher to rank top 10 in pressures, sacks, and quarterback hits by percentage of snaps. That's an amazing statistic from Scott Barrett from Pro Football Focus. San Diego gives up over 260 passing yards per game. They've allowed 18 passing scores, but actually lead the league in INTs with 16. Latavius Murray, a C+. San Diego, they're great against the run, allowing only 3.7 yards per carry on the season. The one spot they're susceptible is running back touchdowns. They've allowed the third most in the league, 17 on the season. I think Murray can find the end zone at least once here, but don't expect a ton of yardage from him this week. And then for the receivers, Michael Crabtree, I'm giving him the B+. Since weeks 9 and 11, when he laid a couple consecutive eggs with a bye in between, he's been one of the most bankable receivers in the league, certainly Oakland's top pass catcher. I think if he avoids Casey Hayward, he'll be the better start over Amari Cooper. He has scored in 3 straight against San Diego.
I agree.
Speaking of Cooper, a B-. He likely sees Casey Hayward. That's what I think. And Hayward's been very good against opposing pass catchers this season. His target share kind of been all over the map the past month or so, which doesn't help matters. Over to the Chargers. Phillip Rivers, a B grade, a very cautious B grade, mostly due to a weak Raiders secondary that has allowed nearly 3,500 passing yards on the season, 21 touchdowns, 12 INTs. Something, though, has been off about Rivers' game as of late. I can't put my finger on it. There might be a hidden injury there. I wouldn't be surprised to find that out down the road. But I will say losing Melvin Gordon doesn't help my shaky confidence in Rivers and that passing.
Do you want to know
game.
what my thought is?
What is it?
He does not have his Texas tie on.
Oh, jeez. What do they call that? A bolio tie or something?
Yeah, bolio.
So ridiculous. I don't think any of the runners are worth a starting grade this week, so I'm going to leave them on the bench. Tyrell Williams, I'm giving a B grade to. 5 receptions for 117 yards and a score the last time these two teams met back in October. Williams is the Chargers' most consistent high-floor option in the passing game. Should be treated as a wide receiver 2 or flex, considering the lack of Melvin Gordon this week. Dontrell Inman, a C+. His floor is 0. His ceiling, pretty sizable, actually. He's worth a flex spot in certain matchups. This may be one of them, as these two teams tend to play in high-scoring affairs. Antonio Gates, a C grade, did find the end zone in the matchup earlier this season, but has since gone missing for the most part. I personally would look elsewhere, despite the fact that the Raiders are a great matchup for opposing tight ends on the season. Hunter Henry, man, I just don't know what to do with these guys. A C grade, a dart throw at best. I just, call me crazy, but I just don't trust rookie tight ends in my fantasy playoffs. Brian.
Yeah, well, it's just tricky because you don't know. You say Hunter Henry, then Gates shows up, catches 5 balls. So then you're like, Gates has been on a tear. He's going to get the record now. So let's start Gates. Then he gets 0 targets, and Henry gets like freaking 80 yards and a touchdown.
I've stuck my neck out for Gates the past couple of weeks here, and I've watched Hunter Henry score a touchdown, even though it was like, 1 catch for 12 yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
It's still a touchdown.
Still a touchdown.
Gates certainly didn't have that. And like I said, Gates has, pretty much disappeared since earlier in the year when he was actually scoring touchdowns. And I'm not sure at this point.
PEDs.
Well, I'm not sure at this point that he's going to surpass Tony Gonzalez.
Nope.
We thought that was going to be a done deal.
He's not coming back next year.
So, and that might be it for him. So Tony, is holding on to a little bit of hope that his record might still be, affixed to his name.
You bet he is.
Yeah, no question
You think
about
he's paying Rivers like, hey, just come on.
Oh, that's funny. One more set of matchups for Week 15, and then Brian and I dive into bargain bin picks in case you're in need of a dart throw at the quarterback, running back, or pass catcher spot. And then, of course, the Fantasy Flea Flicker wraps things up as always. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. The 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also online on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Week 15 breakdowns. One more set of matchups, and you will begin with
New England at Denver. Quarterback Tom Brady's going to get a B. He's not going to go bonkers since it is in Denver, but expect him to move the chains and feed his running backs with plenty of action. He always has 7 different pass catchers, and this week won't be much different. The Broncos allow 180 yards in the air, and that's daggone good. Running back LeGarrette Blount, he's getting an A. There are only 2 weeks this entire season that Blount does not have more than 10 points. Every single time I say he will have reduced time, reduced carries, or whatever, he always gets something. 50 yards and a touchdown, 120 yards and no touchdowns. Just start him. He has 14 touchdowns on the year, and plus Denver likes to give up 120 on the ground. White and Lewis, they're going to get a B. They split time as usual. Always a tough call to start one over the other. Decent game because of the Patriots. Just keep feeding. Or it won't be a huge game because the Patriots, I believe, are just going to keep feeding Blunt the ball.
Yeah, listen, I mean, neither have been really effective at all.
No, not at all.
Deion Lewis, since he came back, has done virtually nothing. James White has had his carries and touches, cannibalized by Deion Lewis. And
I don't think either one of them. Gronk.
I don't think either one of them are worth a start this week.
No, I think it's just because there's no Gronk, so he pulls that extra coverage, freeing up that taking that linebacker out of the field so the running back could catch the ball.
Sure.
So I think that's why. Edelman, C+. Hard to pick one, especially in Denver. I would avoid if possible, but obviously he's probably going to get Talib. So I would actually pick Hogan out of all these pass catchers here. Amendola is going to be on the bench. Hogan's going to get a B-. I just believe that Hogan, he's got the second best numbers out of all the receivers, but the way his route tree kind of goes, he's not going to get either of the cornerbacks consistently. So I think he's going to have the most snaps without the elite coverage on him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a tricky way to think about it. Either way, I don't like us having to start any of them. It's just a bad matchup. Martellus Bennett is going to get a B+. He caught all four of his targets last week and a touchdown. Week before, he was invisible. There are other options available. However, someone's going to have to get it. It's a risky play. Someone's going to have to get it.
Well, it's risky because he's an elite blocking tight end, and they love to keep him in. Like, if they can, they'll keep him in.
Mm-hmm.
And he only runs routes when he has to.
Yep.
And it's not going to be many, but,
That's
if you want to start him.
It's my dice roll.
And you know what? It can pay off. He's very athletic. He's great down near the red zone, and Tom Brady does look for him.
Yep.
So,
absolutely. So, on to the Denver Broncos. Quarterback Trevor Siemian's going to get a B-. Never a good option, especially in your playoffs. Even if you're worried about Stafford, just avoid it. Go grab somebody else. Running back Justin Forsett, C+. Fifth best run defense. So leave them all on the bench. I expect it to be a low-scoring game, but if Brady does get going, then Simeon's going to have to throw the ball. So I believe Broncos will have to abandon the run game quickly. Demaryius Thomas is going to get a B-. Even when the Pats are up, Simeon's going to have to throw if they want to win. That's the problem. Simeon's going to have to throw. It's going to be a tough matchup either way. Demaryius Thomas has under 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Talk about a fall from grace. Emmanuel Sanders, he's the better play for me. He has the same stats, nearly identical stats as Demaryius Thomas. And the short passing options, I think, are more favorable against the Patriots than the long down the field play that Demaryius Thomas is. That's pretty much the end of that one.
Yeah, it depends on who Darius Butler ends up on, because Butler's really their cover corner there in New England. So I don't know if he gets Thomas or he gets Sanders, but whoever ends up with Butler on him is going to have a long day ahead of him. Tampa Bay, Dallas, first the Bucks. Jameis Winston a B-. The worst thing to happen to Winston's fantasy prowess has been the resurgence of the Tampa defense, who have allowed only 13 points per game to opponents over the past month. Jameis has been managing the offense, taking care of the ball, but not lighting up the box score for your fantasy team. Enter the Cowboys, who are a decent matchup, not only for him, but for Mike Evans, who tends to be the guy to make or break a Winston's fantasy success week to week. Speaking of Evans, an A grade. Brandon Carr, Anthony Brown are no match for his size, his speed, his overall ability to demolish a defense single-handedly. He should get back on a serious roll again this week after a couple of quiet weeks. Doug Martin is a C+ this week. The Cowboys rank second in yards allowed to opposing backs. Only 5 touchdowns have been scored on them all year on the ground. Martin gets plenty of volume in the running game, plus a few receptions, but I don't think this one will be one of those great muscle hamster games by any means. Russell Shepard, I'll give a C grade to, dart throw at best, but in the conversation because he's the deep threat, and much of the attention will be on Evans in this game. Tight end Cameron Brate, a B grade. Another guy that could thrive in this matchup because of Evans. Brate is a favorite target of Winston's in the red zone. For the Cowboys, quarterback Dak Prescott, a C+. The boys will need to lean harder on Elliott again this week as Prescott draws yet another extremely tough matchup. We've seen him put up mediocre stats against Minnesota and the New York Giants the past couple of weeks. Those are elite defenses. Tampa has become elite just in the past month, allowing only 4 passing touchdowns, collecting 10 INTs over that span. Drew Brees and Russell Wilson did not score against Tampa in the past month. Wouldn't surprise me if Prescott wasn't able to either. Ezekiel Elliott, a B+. These Bucks, they held Saints runners to a total of 46 yards, no scores last week. Prior to that, the Chargers went for 119-1. Seahawks went 127-0. The Chiefs 82-1, and the Bears 122-0 in the past month. They've been great. Elliott is great too. He has shown us time and time again he can beat an otherwise dominant defensive front, given enough time and touches. I think ultimately succeeds here, but it won't be easy and it won't happen immediately. You have to be patient to get that. Des Bryant, a B-. He looked pretty awful in last week's loss to the Giants. Of course, Janoris Jenkins and Antonio Rodgers-Cromartie, they've been doing that to opposing pass catchers pretty much all year. Tampa, on the other hand, have just in the past month gotten hot, as I've mentioned. Time to dial back any excitement you might have had for Bryant in a potential bounce-back game. Cole Beasley, a C grade. I love guys like Beasley in PPR leagues. He almost always delivers, even if he doesn't reach the end zone. Jason Witten, a C grade. I don't have high hopes for him in this matchup. Tampa are, by the numbers, a very average defense against opposing tight ends. But again, the trend line over the past 4 to 5 weeks tells a different story. They've been very solid.
Carolina at Washington. Quarterback Cam Newton's going to get a B-. 20 total touchdowns for Cam against the subpar Redskins defense. I will give him an average grade as he almost always puts out manageable numbers. Running back Jonathan Stewart's going to get a B. They should give him the ball 25 times, but they probably won't. He has only had 20-plus carries 2 times in the last 8 weeks.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's stupid. And only over 70 yards 1 time in his last 6.
Lack of volume.
Kelvin Benjamin's going to get a B-. In the last 2 weeks, he has had 13 targets with 3 catches for 29 yards. Good job, buddy.
Oof, considering how dominant he looked early in the season. Man.
Yeah,
Crazy.
The first 2 weeks were nuts. Other than that, garbage.
In a world.
Yeah, here we go.
Kelvin Benjamin takes a back seat.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what his issue is, but it's not good. Ted Ginn Jr. Funches bench. Greg Olson's going to get a B. He's been down for the most part, only eclipsing 10 points in his last 6 games or so. I don't expect much here either. He's just 1 year older, and that just hasn't been the same Panthers. But he still catches balls. He still gets open. He still does his stuff. On to the other side of the ball, to the Redskins, quarterback Kirk Cousins gets an A. One of the few quarterbacks that's over 4,000 yards this year. And he has 23 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He's going to get paid this offseason, or he's going to get franchise tagged to $27 million, which would be hilarious for Kirk Cousins. Running back, he's going to get a B. Surprisingly, racking up points as of late, 63 yards in both games and a touchdown in his last one. Decent matchup, so it's worthy of a shot, especially if you own Melvin Gordon. Deshaun Jackson's going to get a B+. Over 100 yards and a touchdown last week. I expect another good game. The Panthers aren't great, and D-Jax will be looking to inflate his stats for a good paycheck next year. Pierre Garçon, he had 5 of 6 for a touchdown last week. He's not going to make you a ton of money, but he's also going to get you decent points when you need them the most, especially in this risky, injury-filled, questionable week. Jordan Reed, B+. Shoulder should be better this go. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Jordan Reed gets out there and stretches out. But if he goes, you got to start him.
He's one of those guys, Brian, where you start him, and this is a great matchup. I mean,
yeah,
Jordan Reed can get you into your fantasy championship. Nobody has given up more tight end touchdowns except for Cleveland. Cleveland has given up, I think, 11's the number, and I think Carolina's right below that. So I think they've given up 10 tight end touchdowns. And they've given up a tight end touchdown in 4 straight games, too, by the way. So Jordan Reed.
Vernon freaking Davis vulturing those touchdowns, I'm going to scream and cry.
That will not be good. That will not be good at all.
I'm done.
That's it for the matchup, speaking of being done. So up next, bargain bins. So that's 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 pass catcher from both Brian and myself that chances are available right now on your waiver wire. You can go grab them, plug them in this week, expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. And for those of you that take a chance on these guys, they could get you to the fantasy championship round. Huge calls upcoming and the flea flicker as well. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Final segment of this week's edition of the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. We are on demand and in demand.
On demand and in. Ooh, that's catchy, man.
Yeah.
I might get a tattoo of that.
Right off the top of my head. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eichenberry. Before we wrap up this week's show, the bargain bin, 3 players, chances are available on your waiver wire. I will give you a quarterback, a running back, and a pass catcher, as will Brian. And because I am I was taught some manners as a child. Why did I just go into Brett Favre mode there?
I have
that
no
was
idea.
weird. Taught some
You wanna go get
manners
some Wranglers
as a child. Let's go
and
toss the
get
football
some nose hair trimmers
in the backyard.
and whatever else.
Oh my God,
selling. He's selling.
We're talking
everything.
about this in the flea flicker. All right, stop. All right, bargain bin. Let's start with your quarterback.
Tyrod Taylor. I mentioned him. A lot of people dropped him as of late, but look, he is playing the Browns. He had 220 and 2 last week. He can do it again.
My quarterback is Alex Smith. Let's say you're looking for a guy that is a sure bet for roughly 265 yards passing, at least 1 touchdown pass, and 0 turnovers. The quarterback with perhaps the safest floor in Week 15 is Kansas City's Alex Smith, who this week gets a Titans defense that has given up the second most passing yards in the league thus far, a total of 22 passing scores. Just as important to consider, Tennessee, one of the league's toughest run defenses, which means the Chiefs will need to go to the air more often to beat them. With a full complement of healthy receivers, expect Smith to deliver a very solid Sunday for your playoff squad. Brian, who's your running back?
Bilal Powell, believe it or not.
That's my guy, man. I think I should have a monopoly on Bilal Powell.
As of right now, at time of recording, he's only owned in like 43% of Yahoo leagues, which means you can get a stud.
It's unbelievable.
Stud right now who's out there for basically free.
I understand why somebody might have dropped him earlier in the season.
Yeah, I get that.
Because it became a very apparent early on in the season that Todd Bowles just was not going to give him the ball. Now, I thought this was going to go differently, admittedly. Okay, going into the season, he and Matt Forte signed very similar deals. They were both making about the same amount of money, and there was no reason why they shouldn't have split that backfield more, but Forte was just getting all kinds of love, and I'm going, why? Like, yes, he's had some good games, but come on, give Powell the ball. So, I mean, I held on to Powell in most of my leagues, and it's going to pay off here in Week 15. So, see how that goes. My bargain bin this week at the running back is Isaiah Crowell. Week 14 may have been a blueprint for how the Browns will attack opponents the rest of the season, relying more heavily on their bell cow back Crowell, opening the passing game for RG3 by establishing the run first. Buffalo has allowed the 5th most rushing yards this season, the 2nd most rushing scores, just 1 less than the awful 49ers, in fact. We all saw what the Crow did against the Bengals last week. The Bills are even worse up front. Who's your pass catcher?
Anquan Bolden. He's been mine twice now this year. With Stafford's injury, it's going to have to be these short passes to make them move the ball. And I don't think the Giants are equipped to do that, especially with JPP out on the one side. That gives them an opportunity for these quick passes for Bolden to get you 40 and a touchdown.
Quick dumps.
Quick dumps, baby.
My pass catcher is J.J. Nelson, with Michael Floyd dealing with the consequences of a DUI charge. And
Whoops.
No longer a member of the Arizona Cardinals. Nelson becomes the de facto number 2 option in the Cardinals passing game, facing a Saints defense that has allowed the 4th most passing yards in the league, 19 passing touchdowns on the season. Nelson is about as close to a home run as there is in this bargain bin segment. And that'll do it for the bargain bin. If you pick any of those guys up and plug them in, we wish you the absolute best and hope they get you onto that fantasy championship round. The 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker is how we always wrap up the show, giving Brian and I an opportunity to talk about whatever we want. I have a fun story about Brett Favre, by the way, which it's funny you mentioned the fact that he's now hawking all these products.
And the guy is literally selling everything that somebody will pay him to sell.
There is one shelf in every Walgreens store where you can see Brett Favre's face like 20 times because
that's funny.
All those products are sitting on like one shelf in Walgreens. Brett Favre is a really great dude, I come to find out. I have a family member, and without giving too much away here, because I don't know if I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I have a family member who works within the Minnesota Vikings organization as a security detail. He's a former cop and retired now, but he does this for the Vikings. And so he's assigned to players. Well, he was assigned to Brett Favre in 2009 and 2010 when he was with the Vikings. And they've since become very good friends, and they've gone hunting together and hung out. And Brett Favre does all the things you think Brett Favre does. He is so genuine and like the dude you think he is. I grew up hating Brett Favre because he was a Packer.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he became a Viking, I had a reason to cheer for him, which was amazing. And now he, of course, back with the Packers, got, inducted into their Hall of Fame, and that makes sense. He should as a Packer. But for a couple of years there, it was fun to cheer for him. Not going to lie.
That's a nice story.
Thanks. I feel better now.
What else were we supposed to talk about before Brett Favre?
I don't know. That one just kind of came out of nowhere. We're going to talk about Rogue One.
Rogue One, that's right.
A Star Wars story.
So, if you don't know me, I got my into podcasting way back. I used to write spoiler news for a group called Far, Far Away Radio. They're a Star Wars podcast. They're on StarWars.com in the fan section. And really cool people. I loved them. Far, Far Away Radio. Great stuff. Great introduction into this world. So I knew a lot of rumor mill stuff that was actually true on episode 7. So I'm a huge Star Wars guy. My thing with Rogue One, for me to accept this as an awesome movie, I have 2 conditions. 1, Vader has to be super evil.
We're going to get a really good, unique look at Vader, I think.
Which they did a lot of reshoots in the summer, and those reshoots were focused, the rumor is, that they were focused on Vader's scenes because Vader was too violent. As I was described one scene from an insider where Vader is walking and attacking a group of rebels. He is using a rebel, holding them in the air by the force, deflecting blaster fire with his body of a rebel as he's throwing his lightsaber in another direction.
Wow.
That is Vader. Vader is evil and sadistic, and he is the most powerful force wielder in the galaxy. That's Vader. Mm-hmm. So I want to see Vader as you've never seen him before, as he's written in the books. Condition 2, everybody has to die in this movie. Every main cast member and every hero has got to die. That is the only way this movie can conclude, is with Jyn. She's the female lead, Jyn Erso.
Yep.
With her death. Everybody has to die getting the
plans have to get, the Death Star plans have to get to their destination.
That's what's going to be very infuriating.
How do they get there? There has to be a secret something there. So it's going to be unexplained,
sequel.
right?
Yeah, there's no sequel to this.
No, this is a lead up to A New Hope.
This is a one and done. They can't
mini
rewrite
episode,
episode 4. They can't squeeze another one in there.
No, and this isn't even technically an episode. This is like a mini episode.
It's a Star Wars story.
Right.
Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
And this is the story of the Death Star plans and how they became, or how they got into the possession of, where they ended up
Princess
ultimately.
Leia.
Yeah. So, and then of course R2D2, and yeah, we know the story. But how it's all going to unfold, I'm not nervous. I'm actually very excited. I'm going to a premiere tonight, so I'm going to have a full report on it next week without any spoilers because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But we'll have that to talk about. We will have Christmas to talk about because that's coming up as well.
Yay!
Wow. I'm so hungry.
I am.
I wish you would have brought some McRibs with you tonight. Because I could have used some McRibs right now.
Yeah, so I had an issue earlier in the day. I went into work. The machine wasn't working, so I kind of left. I pulled into the McDonald's drive-thru at 10:23 because I remembered they had McRibs, and I got super excited because I like
Fatal
food.
Fatal flaw.
Pull in, whip in, 10:23. Hey, need the 2 McRib meal because I'm fat. I don't get just 1 McRib. I get 2 McRibs.
Well, okay, listen, you don't even have to be fat for that. The power of the Force compels you, okay? It's $1.
Yeah.
You're going to get the second McRib.
I'm getting the second one for $1. Guy's like, sorry, you can't. You got to wait till 10:30. I'm like, I'm in the drive-thru right now. Nope.
Son of a.
Literally can't put it in the computer until 10:30. So I'm like, all right. I'm not rude because that's the rules, and he can't do anything. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go park in the parking spot.
For 7 minutes.
So I parked in the parking spot 7 minutes. Nobody came through the drive-through. 10:30 on the dot. Boom, pull up. I'm like, hey, it's me again. He goes, 2 McRib meal. I'm like, yes, sir.
Bam.
Got it in there, buried that stuff on the drive back. I didn't even get there. It was delicious.
I heard a rumor that certain outfits or retailers are going to have some Nintendo Minis in the next few days.
The only
Brian, will
ones,
you go stand in line for me and get one?
I might.
Seriously, get it for me.
But
I'll give you $61.
dude,
Okay.
my wife will kill me.
All right. I'm going to find somebody. I want that thing. It's
think-
mine.
I don't think the rumor's true.
We got to go. Good luck to everybody this week. I know it's a big week. And thank you for listening. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Till next time.